Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, as the day of Eid is all about the sacrifice, it reminds us about the great sacrifice of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, and not only a prophet of God, but also the founder of three major religions in the world. And certainly the Christianity and Judaism also believe him to be a prophet of God. So we are going to discuss about the sacrifice and what we learn out of all of this that happened with Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. I am joined by a panel of guests. I have PTV's anchor person Zawad Dahami, who is my guest in this session of program, and also I have Mr. Imran Sandhu, who is a religious scholar. So I welcome you to my program.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Walaikum assalam.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Maru.
Ji, Jawad, of course, Eid, we've been earlier talking about, of course, the festival of Eid and what it entails and all that. But overall, what is it, what do you do on Eid? How is Eid for you every year?
Well, actually, it is a day of celebration, no doubt about it. It is that very festival that Islam brings to its followers, the two basic festivals, Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. But it actually happens to be a little different for the people who belong to media. As you know,
don't
media,
get a break?
most of the time you don't get a break like that because you have to be on the screen.
That's the sacrifice you make.
Yeah, that is another sacrifice to make indeed. So you are away from family, you're in the studio, but of course that ambience of the festivity remains over there. You come over here in the office, you get a chance to have a get together with your colleagues, and then you share all those stuff that is offered on that particular day, especially when it comes to Eid al-Adha. So that very feeling of togetherness that brings you together on that certain specific day with a very that particular sense of giving to your colleagues, the people who are you are surrounded with. So that sort of a thing. So it happens to be a little different for anchor people or the media people who are attached in one way or the other, whether you come on screen, whether you are at the back end. So it has to be it happens to be quite challenging because naturally you like to spend such sort of days with your family and close loved ones, but naturally you have to carry on your duties as well. But having said that, sense of festivity still remains there. The sense of togetherness still remains there. So that sort of a void when you are away from your family, that is filled by your colleagues, the people you are surrounded with in your office, and they actually happen to be your family as well, because most of the time you get to spend with them as well. Yeah.
Sadhab, this is a great festival that reminds of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam and the great sacrifice that he made. Help us to understand or to recall this historic background of events that took place, that unfolded during his age.
Nahmaduhu wa nusalli wa nusallimu ala rasulihil kareem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Actually, Hajj is one of the pillars of Islam. Islam has 5 basic pillars. Buniyal in Islam wala khamsin. The first pillar is Aqidah. The second is namaz, then zakat, and the last one is actually Hajj. When we say Hajj is a pillar of Islam, then it becomes an objective of life to perform Hajj at least once in a lifetime. And it's called, in Arabic it is called maqsood li ainihi. It is a direct objective of Islam. Why Hajj is a direct objective of Islam? We have to think about it, we can ponder upon it. So if one ponders upon the direct objectives, the first thing you would come to know is, without doing this Hajj, if you are capable of traveling and you've got enough funds and wealth with you, if you don't do it, you become a grave sinful person. So performing Hajj once in a lifetime, if you've got the wealth, it's fard al-ain, right? So now, after discussing the jurisprudential status of Hajj in Islam, let's come to the historical background. And what does Hajj, what is the philosophy behind this ibadah, this act of worship? So the philosophy is, Ibrahim alayhi salam was ordained upon, he was ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to travel from his from a faraway place uh, to to Makkah first time, and he was ordered to bring his wife Hagar or Hajra alayhi salam, and his infant son Ismail, and leave those two in the wilderness, because at that time there was no Kaaba over there. There was no
city.
Yeah,
there
it was
no
it was a valley. It was a valley without any crops, without any things that one could sustain upon. So this was the first examination of the Prophet, because it was done through wahi. He had to leave him in all the wilderness. And if you imagine, if you are if any one of us is ordered upon to leave parents or leave children and go into wilderness, it's impossible for us. It's unimaginable, because it was an order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When an order comes, you don't go into the wisdom. What is the wisdom? There is a wisdom, no doubt about it. The wisdom is, we can see the wisdom today. It becomes an ijtima, it becomes a congregation of whole of the Muslim community in the world. It gives us a sense of strength, a sense of togetherness today. So at that time one could not have judged the wisdom, but today we can see the wisdom, how it becomes a sense of unity for all the Muslim ummah. So now when he was going back to his wife asked, is this an order by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And he didn't say anything, because he was ordered not to speak. So then she said, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. For us, Allah is wakeel. We can rely, we trust Allah. Then when he went away, there's a, you know about Zamzam. Zamzam has its own historical background. Zamzam came as a first currency for her. What happened is, a Qabila from Jurhum was traveling towards Makkah, and when they were migrating from one place to the other, and they passed through Makkah, and they saw a lady with a child alone sitting over there on a well. This Zamzam actually has an history that if Jibreel alayhi salam was ordered when she was running between Safa and Marwa, we call it Sa'i today. Sa'i represents that struggle that she was doing for having sustenance for her child. So this Qabila was passing through and saw this Zamzam, and they liked the water of Zamzam so much, this sacred water, that they decided to not to go away from this place. They decided, and it became, this Zamzam became a barter for her. They provided her sustenance, and she would provide her the water. The water was such, the purity of that water was great, and and this water has its own attributes. It gives shifa and all that things. Then when you when Ibrahim alayhis salam came back after a few years, and his son has grown up by that time, his second visit over there, so he demanded two things. He said that Allah has ordered me to sacrifice you in the way of in the way of his deen. So Ibrahim alayhis salam was a Nabi, and it was due to wahi, because wahi, normal person cannot have wahi. So this order cannot come on a normal person, just as a disclaimer, right? So for Ibrahim alayhis salam, this wahi came, and he asked his son, who was again to be Nabi, and he said, whatever order Allah has given, I obey, I submit myself, taslim. That's why we call our deen as Islam, right? Because of the taslim. So he said that I am ready to do it. So this is what we do in as the last portion of Hajj. But before the last portion, they built Kaaba. There's a rock over there, Maqam Ibrahim. You can see the footprints of Ibrahim alayhi salam over there as of today as well. That rock actually worked as a lift for him, and it went around and around and around and around, and he built Kaaba like that. So
And Kaaba wasn't built as tall as it stands today. It was slightly shorter.
Yeah. So now that, and Ibrahim alayhi salam with his son Ismail alayhi salam built Kaaba, and the tawaf of Kaaba represents that act of Ibrahim building of Kaaba, right? And you can very well see, you can connect to the universe by doing this tawaf, because if you see now the science has telescopic view of all the universe. Now we can see the anti-clockwise movement of all the creatures, like the planets around the sun. It is anti-clockwise. We do an anti-clockwise tawaf of Kaaba, like we are going round and round. And tawaf is a very beautiful ibadah. And then we go to Mina and Muzdalifah. We read the Hajis must have now gone through this process of going to after tawaf qudum to Mina. There we read Quran, and then we go to Arafat. We stay over there. Then we come back to Muzdalifah for picking up stones. Now the picking up of stones is yet again another message. There is a message inside of it, that whenever you are going to go for good deeds, you are going to go for sacrifice. As of today, Shaitan is going to come to you at least 3 times. So those 3 places where Shaitan came to Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam to give him waswasa not to do the sacrifice. So Ibrahim alayhi salam actually ignored him, and the best way to not listen to Shaitan is to ignore him. And there we, as of a metaphor, we stone Shaitan over there. There are 3 pillars over there. And
as we have read this story before as well, and thank you very much for recapping it once again, but that actually gives birth to another question. All of the prophets of God that we read, at least 26 or 24 of them in Quran as well, had a wonderful story in their lifetime. They lived for the people, they lived for the way God told them. They did everything for their own people. But Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam specifically has been given this rank. As you just rightly mentioned, the entire Hajj, the concept of Eid, the concept of Sa'i, the concept of Tawaf, the very existence of Khana Kaaba, the placement of Hajar Aswad, everything revolves around the life of Ibrahim. So my question here is, in your personal view, what exactly makes him the Imam of all the other prophets that we just heard about in Quran, and then why his life we have to look towards every year on the day of Eid?
First of all, I would like to comment on the word Imam. Imam of all the prophet is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he led even Ibrahim alayhi salam on a prayer on the day of ascension to the Jannah, the Miraj, the Waqi of Miraj. However, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam is Abul Anbiya. He is father
and the word of Imam has been used for him, I think, in Quran.
Imamul Anbiya is for Rasulullah.
For Rasulullah, but Hazrat Ibrahim has been, the word of Imam has been used for him.
Mostly ulama recognize him as Abul Anbiya. He is the father of all the great prophets, Ulul Amr, Ulul Azm prophets, right? And the reason Ibrahim alayhi salam is given such a status, because when he came to the world, at that time almost majority of the world had gone into shirk. They were doing I think at that time the population should be in millions, not billions or 100 millions. It would be million, but all those people had gone astray, most of them. So Ibrahim alayhi salam had work to do. He was sent to do this work. To and the second thing that is very important about him, he is at the crossroad of a history, because Ambiya at that time were coming through and this, except I would say except this family, they were there was shirk everywhere. So this family to which Ibrahim alayhi salam belongs, he actually spread the dawah, the invitation to the real. And then as I was saying, that at a crossroad of history, now the nabuwat or the prophethood was had to split into two different branches of his family. So the first, it was given to Ishaq alayhi salam, and from his family came Isa alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, and Isa alayhi salam, and Dawood alayhi salam. But from his then
Ismail alayhi salam,
then Ismail
Prophet
alayhi
Muhammad
salam,
sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you allow me to bring
Let
Jawad
me,
back into
yeah,
conversation.
Jawad, of course, what Imran Sahib is saying, it's so relevant to how Islam is today, and the teachings, and how we teach our children, and whether we actually communicate to our children all that's important about the history of Islam. Overall, the significance of that in today's our Eid, the way we inculcate those values into our children, do you think are we keeping it as relevant in your opinion?
I think there are
Sorry.
two ways to look at this particular thing. Let me bring in the one of the quotes from Will Durant. He's of the view the children, specifically when they are in their formative years, that happens to be up till 6 years of age, so they get to learn by imitation, right? So whatever you're doing, so that's what they're going to adopt, and those particular formative years are going to be very crucial for the rest of their lives. So if we want them to adopt certain good habits, for example, sacrificing. Now, when we talk about sacrifice, it's not about giving away. It is basically based on the very sense of having that feeling that we, as an existence, we are a one unit, because we are the followers of one larger entity, the one and only, the Almighty. So no matter whatever the belongings do we have in form of material things or in form of psychological well-being that we do have, no matter whatever the struggle or whatever the effort we do have to make, we have to sacrifice those things
Jawad,
in the
when we talk
larger.
about, of course, I mean, let me interject. When we talk about sacrifice, it's a big part of Islam.
Exactly.
And this sacrifice, the way that Imran Sahib explains it also, is a huge sacrifice, that the Prophet was asked to make in this case. But the point is, even small sacrifices, when we talk about leaving a chair for someone elderly, or we talk about those basic courtesies, unfortunately, one has to acknowledge they're not a part of our society today the way they are of certain other societies which are not even, following Islam.
Well, actually, I tend to differ on it a little because there might be different segments of a certain society, as you specifically talk about the Pakistani society, if you are right now. So, I mean, it varies from one segment to the other segment, or one community to the other community. You just can't generalize that the entire society is not following that pattern or
You
that
think
path.
that you think that we are a courteous nation? You think that if you were to
Yes,
go
in so
on a
many
public transport, you
yes.
would be able to get space, people
Okay,
would get
so
up for
there
you?
is always room of improvement. So we can't generalize the whole society that it doesn't have that sort of set of manners or the etiquettes or the ethics. There might be certain segments which might be projected. It might be because of media also. That the kind of sensation that we have seen over the last 20 years, especially when it comes to the private media. So when you're disseminating the information, it comes with responsibility. So when you connect being responsible, that's another form of sacrifice. You just can't relay or disseminate the information that causes that very word that we use in Urdu, or it might be the word from some other language, that hijan, that sensation, you're not allowed to do that one as well. So when you disseminate the information, if you're projecting something, why not project the positive sides? Yes, we are courteous nation. As a society, we are courteous. Look at the people coming from the European countries over here, going into the northern areas, the kind of love, the hospitality that we get.
Shabahat
Even in Punjab, we go, people are very welcoming.
That's one way
So
of looking at it,
when we go down to the south, people are very welcoming. So taking couple of people up and projecting them as being, and showing them that they are discourteous, I think it's not very right picture that we are
then we can take
sketching
Imran
right now.
Saab's opinion on this also. I mean, is it a wrong projection by media, or is it unfortunately true? Because there's also, you know, we have to acknowledge our
I'm
failures
not denying
to
the
be able
fact
to
that
correct
yes,
them.
there could be some elements like that. So
Well,
yes,
but
there is always
on one
room of
end, as you
improvement.
said, as she said, on one end, yes, there are discourteous people. There are some very clear demonstrations of us being not as courteous as other nations would be. Particularly when you travel abroad, you feel this very quickly. But that said, we are one of the nations that are most generous when it comes to
Giving.
you know, giving. So we have examples like ED Foundation, an organization that started from a man, you know, started begging for people, and there are so many other examples. ED is just one
Yes.
big example, and then to be followed by so many others. There are hospitals that are doing free treatments for maybe so many years, and all of this money is coming by people like us. I mean, no people are giving their boards and banners.
We
for that.
are going to, I mean, of course, Imran Saab, I'll you know, let you elucidate on this. But overall, I'm not saying that there are not good things in our society. We are not a charitable society. We don't take care of our weak. We don't take care of our old, which perhaps other societies don't. But in terms of basic courtesies, don't you feel that we perhaps have, you know, we can do much better than we are doing at this time? When we are telling our children, when we are teaching our children, those basic courtesies unfortunately seem to be taking a back seat somehow.
Right. So benchmarking, I would say benchmarking.
Okay.
If we want to benchmark ourselves and do a comparison can really help you where we are, who we are, what we are doing. No doubt Pakistan, from the ideological point of view, it is the only state in the world that claims to be founded on the principles of Islam. And if we see this event of Hajj, it represents all those things that are there in Islam, like we go and pray over there, we do tawaf over there. Coming back to the point, the benchmarking, if we relate ourselves or connect ourselves to the Qurun Ula, the Jama'ah of Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, and Ahlul Bayt, we find ourselves nowhere near them as a society. If we see that transformation that was made, just the worst society on the planet and then becoming the best society on the planet. The reason I say it was the best society on the planet, Islam grew without the power of sword. Rather, the power of sword was used to demolish atrocities of kings and, you know, those people who were oppressing people. That was the reason the sword was used, because they oppressed people. They put them on the wrong track. The kings of that time, two big superpowers doing shirk.
So the persecution was dampened.
The persecution was the real
That is the
reason.
element which is not
Yeah.
understood, and that's why the people, you know, take the wrong meaning out of it.
So-
that perhaps Islam was spread on the
Yeah.
by the dint of sword.
Rather,
Or violence.
it removed the persecution. It removed all those zulm that was happening around the world. And if you compare it with, again, historically, if you compare it with great conquerors of the world, like Genghis Khan was a great conqueror of the world. Wherever he went, he conquered the world like anything. He conquered the Muslim world. But the day he went away from the world, all of his system was just drained down. Nobody follows him today.
Nobody follows his religion.
Yeah,
It was
his concept, his
altogether rampant.
ideology.
That's right.
Rather,
That's right.
like Hitler, if you say, Hitler was a great conqueror, but when he was defeated, nobody wants to follow him today. But look at Islam. Whoever, wherever Muslims went, they did their businesses. People converted to Islam, reverted to Islam, whatever whatever word you use. But and we as a society, we should not be satisfied who we are today. We should feel the thirst of following the people of Qurun Ula. This is going to really define us who we are, we will be. It has been 70 years today, and we founded this country on the principles of Islam. And as of today, if I want to criticize, I can criticize hours and hours about what we are doing wrong. But if I want to see the positive side, we've got positive sides as well. But critical analysis is very important as well as of today. Look, the Federal Shariat Court today very rightly gave a decision that remove riba or sood, as we call it in Urdu, we call it as riba in Arabic, remove it from the society, so that the disparity of the financial disparity goes away. What happens is, when you implement sood in a society, the rich gets richer and poor gets
So if I
poorer.
can bring Jawad back into the conversation. So the day of Eid, as you said, most of time it's fortunately or
Most of the times,
unfortunately,
not all the times.
we are workers from a profession who do not take a break on the days of Eid as well. But how do you see this festival as a reminder of the great cause that we have to all look upon, being followers of religion Islam?
Well, actually, the very concept that I understand right from a childhood, that you have to bring in a sacrificial animal, you have to go to the market and you purchase a sacrificial animal, you come over here. Usually in our society it happens just 2 to 3 days before, because there are a lot of variables, the financial variables, the market ups and downs going on, the rates of the sacrificial animals, so there are so many constraints everybody is looking into. But the actual concept that I have understood right from my childhood is that Islam urges you to take that sacrificial animal well before time, most probably 6 months before you sacrifice it, because 6 months, psychologically speaking, it takes at least 6 months to get very closer intimacy and attachment to a certain thing. So once you have developed, you have reared the animal right in front of your eyes, you have fed it, you have given it whatever it required, you have sheltered it, you have protected it from the climatic conditions, and then you naturally start feeling for that life, that existence. So when you develop that sort of intimacy and love with it, so when on that day, when it comes to sacrifice it, it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of gut, to slaughter it with
It
your
takes a
hands.
piece of your heart away.
Exactly. And again, when you slaughter it at that day, I'll come to the part of how do we actually distribute the shares of it. That's another part that's very philosophical as well, and that needs to be inculcated among the society as well. Now, once you have sacrificed that animal with which you have attached, got the attachment for the last 6 months, it takes a lot of courage. You slaughter it, and that very blood that is spilled, it actually is the slaughtering of your ego, because that belongs to you. You have paid for it, you have sheltered it, you have protected
loved it, nurtured
you have
it.
loved it,
Absolutely.
you have nurtured it, and then what you are actually sacrificing over here, not that animal, that very ego, or the sense of belonging, of owning something, because at the end of the day you own nothing in this world. It's the larger entity that takes the ownership of everything. So you slaughter it, you enjoy the meat, and then for the rest of the 6 months, psychologically, many psychological experts are of the view, once you have developed an attachment with a certain thing, person, or a place, it takes at least 6 months to get over that memory, the psychological memory of that loss. So for the rest of the 6 months, you are in a perpetual state of getting away from that very loss and trying to get rid of that, because you have lost a very dear thing that you nurtured for 6 months. Now, so in this way, around the year, you are in a perpetual state of sacrificing, and that is a symbol that you have to sacrifice your ego, whether these are the base instincts of human being, whether it is
Right.
lust for power, wealth, or anything else, because at the end of the day, nothing belongs to you. Even your own body or your own
Right,
systems
it's that
don't
concept,
belong to you.
right.
And such a close exposure to the death itself
Exactly.
reminds at least me, that's my personal feeling, the fact that we all have to go. And that's, I think, what Islam
Exactly.
wants us to think, that since all of us have to go and appear before
transient
Allah,
life,
we
yeah.
have to live our life in a way that we can stand, courageously and say, yes, we lived a good
for
life.
the larger entity, for the larger supreme being, because taking away life of a living being is the most heinous crime, right? You're not allowed to take the life of anything, whether it be plant, because they're also living organisms, whether it be animals, whether it be human beings. So it comes under the definition of murder. So now you're doing it with your own hands. Who has given you the permission? Because
Right.
once you are slaughtering that, you are saying Bismillahi, Allahu Akbar. So,
That we-
but
yes,
in the name of Allah, by the will of God.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, Jabad. Thank
It
you
was
for
a
joining
pleasure.
us. Imran Sandhu Saab, thank you for your lovely elucidation of what Islam and Eid mean on these this Eid ul-Azha and what it means and its significance today. I hope that you all had, I will continue to have and are having a great Eid and are celebrating with your loved ones. Please remember those who are less fortunate on this very important occasion, and please do as much as you can for those who are unable to do as much for themselves or their loved ones. Thank you so much for being with us today on this Eid. Thank you for joining us.